Welcome to the Identity Work Podcast. If you are a high achiever struggling to find purpose in work, then join us as we discover how to create more meaning in work and life. Welcome to this week's episode. It is great to see you, Adam. How are you doing tonight?
It's good to be here. I'm in the midst of tons of boxes because we are packing up to move in like 4 days. Thankfully, you can only see behind me. You can't see in front of
Where
me.
are you
where there's,
moving?
like
This is new.
We're coming back to Dallas. No, I'm kidding. Sorry to disappoint. We are moving like 3 minutes away down the street.
Did you get a house?
No, just an apartment with an extra bedroom so that we have. Christy is currently working. Her office is in our closet. And apparently she was not into that. I'm not sure why.
Weird.
So,
Should be another newsletter topic of how environments impact meaningful work. I mean, it's interesting, honestly.
I literally wrote that newsletter last week. So
really, it's coming.
Next week, it's coming.
Wow, we're getting good at this. That we can
spoiler.
Yeah,
one brain.
Because I got to think like a cube farm versus like a pretty office space makes a difference. It makes a difference for me, but we'll find out about it.
Yeah, I actually didn't write that angle. I wrote the angle of your house. Just thinking about like what is like sort of having a home that you feel like you like the space contribute to work, but that's another good topic.
Yeah. We also had a listener submit a potential topic too. We'll keep him anonymous.
Bring it on.
He recently read the C.S. Lewis essay called The Inner Ring, and he thinks that would be an interesting topic for us. I know cursory what it's about. It's kind of about how everybody loves to be part of this inner circle. And so I think that could be interesting. And then like, how does that inform meaningful work? Because like we're all from high school, we're in like cliques, So I literally just read the headline, but I'll send it to you. Could be a good topic.
Yeah. I've never read it. I've tried to read everything I can possibly get my hands on written by C.S. Lewis, and I'm not familiar with that one, so I'm in.
All right, let's do it. And today's topic, when job crafting isn't enough, why meaning is moldable, but sometimes the bravest move is to leap. This is a hot topic because I feel like we've spent so many of these episodes, 48 and a half, talking about it's not finding the dream job. It's about creating meaning, thinking more about how we can create meaning in our existing role instead of thinking the grass is always greener. But you're taking a pivot, Adam, and you're saying, maybe meaning's not all moldable. So what is it? What's the answer?
Answer first. Classic consulting. Yeah, I don't know. I think the answer first is that you should definitely try to create more meaning and craft more meaning in your job by doing some of the tactics we've laid out that we can talk more about. But I think being self-aware enough to know you've done what you can, and this is an environment that doesn't have the ability for you to craft it in a way that makes sense, and like pulling the plug and going somewhere else that has a better environment for you is also a reasonable answer that you should not feel shame or disappointment or fear or judgment when you need to take that action.
Okay. So how do we know, and this is something we talked with Larry a little bit about, like how do you know when to like stick it out and persevere versus like when you need to pivot?
Yeah, I think that's the crux of this question that led to me wanting to spend more time thinking about it and writing about it is several weeks or months ago, we had a similar conversation where I wrote sort of a similar article where I had a friend who was kind of mad at me for always talking about job crafting and basically said like, I don't eat, I don't sleep, my life is miserable. And then you show up in my email inbox and say like, life is great, like I hate you, jokingly and in good fun. But this I've had like multiple people kind of ask that same question. Like, I don't like my job. And when do I know that it's time to try something different? Like, what is the line? Is almost what I think people are looking for, like some rule set. It's like, once I try option A, option B, and option C in my job, if none of those three things make it feel like I wanted to feel, then I know that I have now exhausted all possible options and should feel free to move to something else. I don't know. I'd be really curious to get your perspective of you as you've like left jobs, just like reflecting on our past jobs, like how we decided to leave and what we thought of those decisions. I think is maybe like an interesting way to frame this conversation. I think if I had a general answer before I get into maybe some of those specific examples, I think you just know like within yourself. I think you've got to try. You've got to try something. You know, like the first time something bad happens or you feel like this isn't perfect, like that's not the right time. Our guest last week said something that I thought was really wise, which is advice I've heard before, but I like the way he said it, which is when you join a new job, don't think about if you like it or not for 6 months. Basically, like just put your head down, do your job, learn a bunch of stuff, and then 6 months in, assess like how's this going? Is this nice or not nice? I think that's really good advice. I think you probably need more than 6 months to really make a decision of if it's nice or not nice. Unless it's really, really bad, then I think 6 months is probably sufficient. But if it's kind of on that border of like, I like 6 out of 10 things and 2 out of 10 are fine and 2 out of 10 I don't like I think that place you owe it to yourself to try for another 6 months to see if you can move more things into the like bucket. Um, but I think if you've been there a year, it's like sufficient, I think, to start thinking about other options.
Yeah, I think that's a good frame of reference is like if you've been there 6 months to a year and it's not getting any better. Yeah, because new jobs are always tough. Actually, I had a new team member start this week. I was like, first days are like really hard. It's really hard to start a new job. And so you do have to give it time because chances are you're not in the flow. You have a lot to learn. So, um,
Yeah.
okay. So tell us a little bit, I guess, what prompted this? Yeah, and what I know
Yeah.
it started from like a friend conversation and then kind of what have you advised your friend here?
Yeah. Yeah. It started from a friend conversation and I laid down this newsletter. Basically, like what I said, right? There's 10 things in a job that matter to you. This person's job is like excellent at 6 of them. Specifically, what this job is really good at is some of their coworkers they really like. Compensation is it's basically like the highest paid option that is in their field with their current skills. And they like their manager. Like their manager is kind and respectful and encouraging and good at their job and helpful with this friend's job. Generally, like the broad industry they believe in and like. Um, they get feedback, good feedback often. So they're kind of like being rewarded and, getting like confidence boosts as they do good work.
This seems great. I'm in.
Yeah,
What's the problem?
right. These
What's
things
the
are
catch?
amazing.
Yeah.
The things that aren't great are oh, here's another thing that's also good. One more thing that's important is that work life balance generally is really good. Like they're probably working 7 hours a day. Um, eh, the bad things are that work life balance is unpredictable. Like some days they start at 6:30 in the morning, and some days they go until 7 p.m. and you don't really know until the day before. So it's really hard to plan stuff and have rhythm. The company's in a huge transition time. A bunch of their coworkers have been laid off, and you sort of have a sneaky suspicion that you are going to be one of those in the next year. Um, the customers like really hate your product. They complain all the time, and you are the primary person that is interacting with them, trying to help them solve their problems, and they just give you negative feedback a lot. And probably the biggest is that you like morally disagree with some of the decisions that your coworkers make. You don't have to make those same decisions, but it seems to be encouraged to like sort of choose the morally gray option that results in more money for the company. So those are not very good
Wow,
things.
okay, you're right. This is a puzzle.
It's a puzzle, right? It's
Yeah.
like my life is pretty good independent, right? Like a lot of the good stuff is the me stuff. It's like I have my time and money and people think I'm good and all those things. And the bad stuff is more like I don't know if I like buy the product and the business and the company and like the long term standing. So, anyways, a real conundrum to wrestle through, which is what prompted me to write this. And my I don't know, I'm curious I don't know, what would you think of this before I get into what my advice or thoughts were?
Ooh, putting me on the spot. I'm kind of going back to my framework on like, are you using your strengths? Which it sounds like this person is. Are they doing it in a community of team members they like and clients, which seems like 50-50, maybe a little bit negative. And then is there balance? And it's like, yes, not perfect with the flexibility thing. So, um, that's kind of where I'm, I guess, starting now with like the new framework. I guess I'd also ask like how much is it bleeding over into like your work life and then or your home life. And then thinking through like I guess I'm a big fan of just to your point where you said you kind of just know when it's time to leave. Like how can you start planting seeds gently into other lanes and other companies and maybe other fields and seeing which ones begin to take root without having to like make a decision because as we know and especially in these days job opportunities take a longer time to take root and so that's kind of what I would maybe advise on the face of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think similar to what I said to this person. They've been there like a year and a half. And I think one thing that think was helpful advice was finding more than one example of each of those things that we talked about, like the good and the bad. Not just saying, I had this one experience that was morally gray,
Yeah.
and now that feels like the whole company is that, but sort of waiting to see if there's a trend or a pattern. And I think for this person in this situation, all of those things are trends and patterns, the goods and the not goods. And there's countless examples of all of them, and it really feels like the situation is not going to change. Like hard conversations have been had, opinions have been expressed, um, and it's just like culturally not going to shift in the direction that they want. And so, yeah, I think when it's good enough, the slow roll is the right approach for sure. It's starting to understand what else is out there and sort of like feeling out other directions that are possible versus pulling a
On the
plug and
ripcord. Yeah.
aborting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah. So, anyways, that
Uh
was my advice to her.
and what does the research say? Because one of the things it's like we we always have a
Yeah, we always come
perspective,
back
and
to
it's
it.
like, what does the science say?
Yeah, sometimes we nail the research, and sometimes we do not agree. The research that I got on this one was kind of interesting. Basically said that what I would have guessed is that if you took someone who was confident, proactive, and like resilient, would you guess that person is more likely to stick it out in their job or leave? Like, I don't know. I would have guessed stick it out. I'd say if you give high resilience, high confidence, like that person is going to push through barriers and make the best of the situation and stay and like create a good situation. And the research found the opposite. Basically, like those people, those like high performer, high confidence people are more likely to leave, and particularly more likely to leave if they haven't had a good first couple months experience of setting the tone at their job. And the explanation for that was they are confident that they can find something else good, right? Which makes a lot of sense. So maybe it's like a warning to managers where if you feel like you have a high performer, you should maybe spend bonus time thinking about what they're getting out of the job and the meaning that they're finding in it, and sort of partner with them in that pursuit because they are more likely to be willing to go somewhere else.
Good takeaway.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
manage anybody, but you manage people. You're a big boss, so you need to be thinking about that
Just
stuff.
puts more pressure on the 100-day onboarding plan for my new team member.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the research. Something I'm kind of thinking about that I'd love to get your thoughts on is have you had a job that you left that you shouldn't have left? Like you had this debate, you pulled the cord, and now looking back, you think maybe I pulled the cord too early on that one.
No.
Really?
And I think this is where like work and life is interesting. Like, my MBA internship was in corporate strategy for a company called Humana, and my manager at the time there, thankfully, she like convinced me or wanted to convince me to come back. And she's like, "You're going to go at least 2 years in consulting, and the goal of that job is to land a corporate strategy role. So why don't you just skip the 2 years of consulting and like come join corporate strategy now?" And everyone loves you here after like 8 weeks, and you can just like climb the ladder quickly, and everything will be great. And and I think she was right. And I also just didn't want to live in Louisville, Kentucky. So I think that's one of those like where, yes, maybe for my career, that was the better move, because she was 100% right on kind of like that was the goal, leaving, consulting, and I could have just skipped that. Um, but I, made a decision for personal reasons, and like I don't regret that. I don't know. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Did you have any jobs that you felt like you stayed way longer than you should have? You should have pulled the cord earlier than you did?
A good question. I mean, I've moved around quite a bit. So I'd say no to that too. I've been very fortunate. I think to your point of like, I mean, there's been decisions that I've like agonized over. So probably like the biggest decision was I was at a company called Slalom and was offered MoneyGram to come be the head of strategy. And then also like I was dating Lexi long distance at the time, and didn't know kind of where her job would land post business school on the West Coast. And so Slalom provided more flexibility on which offices I could be at. But I really agonized over that decision. I remember reading this book on like how to make decisions. I should remember the name of it. It could be another one of your 55 and a half books to read. Um, but it actually told me to like map out the scenarios. So like if I go to slalom and then Lexi and I break up, what happens? Or like and you kind of do all these if thens, and then and I color coded the pros and cons and saw which areas had more green, which was kind of an interesting technique to do. But it was like there were so many uncertain variables, and I had to kind of like map out that. And I mean, I ended up, yeah, again, feeling good about that decision. But I guess how I make decisions too, I mean, the good old fashioned pro cons list, like a weighted pros and cons list of like, here's a list of 5 things, but one of those things, the flexibility matters a lot more than the money, for example. So I think weighted pros cons, and then getting advice from friends, external perspectives too, has been really helpful. And then prayer. Yeah, but I think prayer, there's a book I read too, is like, "Oh, you just pray about it until you have perfect peace, and then make that decision." Like, that hasn't really happened for me. Like, I still have, like, agonizing and, like, still have made the decision and, like, feel confident, but, like, not 100% peaceful on all of that,
Yeah.
so I don't know if that's good advice. Um, so anyways, I'll rambled enough, turn it back to you. Have you ever feel like you've made the wrong decision?
Man, those are all such good thoughts. I'm intrigued by this mapping exercise that you did. I wanna hear more about what that revealed. The my career decisions. Yeah, I think I've had a handful. I think I've had like at least one or two in both of those categories. It's not that I like regret. I kind of have this hypothesis that like if you just choose to not regret stuff, you can kind of like not. I don't know. Maybe that's like a weird thing to say, but every decision eventually leads you to where you are, and if you're content with where you are, then you know unwinding some decision you made you wouldn't do because you like where you ended up regardless. So I'm not going to frame it as a regret, but I do think leaving my first job is the example that I think about when I'm debating this line. And I just like didn't give it enough time. It was like it was trending up really fast and I was enjoying it more every day and liked what I thought was going to be next. Um, And it started from like a really bad place. I really didn't like it for the first 6 months. And so I think I just committed myself to leaving in the first 6 months and was unable to shake that hypothesis when it
Hmm.
actually got to be something that I enjoyed. But I didn't leave like running away. I left running towards something that I thought was going to be way more exciting. And that thing helped me narrow into tech, which eventually led me to where I am, which I'm really grateful for. And so, it was like it ended up being the right path. But I look back and think there was definitely another year or two of immense learning that I didn't get, because I sort of left as I was climbing. Um, so that's one that I felt like I left early. In retrospect,
How could you have, if you're coaching your younger self on that, like, how
yeah, what
could
would I say
you,
to myself?
yeah,
Yeah, I would say think I wish I'd thought more about the actual tasks that I enjoy and less about the industry or like outside perception of the work. Like this job I'm talking about is consulting. Um and what everyone says about consulting is that it's a grind and that everyone hates it and the travel's terrible and you just do it for a couple of years before you get out and do something different is like the sort of aura X around being a consultant as your first job. Um, the conversations you have with your peers are all about where you're going to go to business school and what are you going to do next, and like that's what you talk about. And so I think I just had this default like, oh, yeah, I'm going to leave, and I didn't. Um, and another part of that is like you just do PowerPoint slides, you just deliver PowerPoint slides, and it's kind of like you never see any work actually happen. And I think that is all those things are like kind of true, to be honest. But what I've learned about myself in the however many years after I left that job is all that really matters to me is how fast am I learning. I think ultimately that is the huge part of the battle of do I feel connected to the work that I'm doing? And that job was the most I've ever learned in a day, you know, times 10. And I think if I'd yeah, again, the question of like what would I advise myself? If I could go back and tell myself like really think about what tasks give you energy, and I could have come to that conclusion earlier. Like you just like to learn and you don't really care what you're learning about. I think that would have changed my timeline at that job. Yeah. The other question of have I left jobs too late? Like I should have left earlier. Um, I think I've done that a couple times, but not like dramatically enough to make it a cool story. It was more like in the jobs that I've left later than I maybe wished, it was I made the decision and then it took 6 months after making the decision until the right departure time for my life sort of lined up. And in each of those jobs, I really felt like I gave it again, learning is the thing for me. And so what ended up souring at these places was I felt like my learning was slowing down. And in both of them, I felt like I spent a lot of time every week asking everyone I could find what else I could be doing, and what more I could deliver, doing extra bonus work that just went into nowhere land because no one else had the capacity to pick up my extra bonus work. And basically eventually being told like you're doing too much work. Like you need to stop doing extra work because no one can do anything with your extra work. Um, and once you get to that point where you're like literally being told to do less, that's a breaking point for me. So I experienced that a couple times, and that's like a
wow, couple
no bueno for
times.
me.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's a weird
interesting
thing to
that
hear in a
learning is
performance
such a,
feedback for sure.
yeah, that is, yeah, it's like you care too hard, It's like, what's your weakness? I was gonna say, yeah, it's interesting that like learning is such a big thing because I also feel like some of our topics of conversation is like learn, 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 but eventually focus and specialize. Do you feel like you still place a value? And obviously, we're always learning, right? Cliche, but like at some point, we become a little bit more of that expert. And do you feel like you've hit that, or is learning still the holy grail for you?
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, maybe it changes at some point. It still feels like learning to me, but I do think learning doesn't have to be broad. I think when you're 23. Learning is sort of by definition broad. You don't know anything about anything. But um, I don't know. I'm 30 and I still don't feel like I know anything about anything. But I am trying to learn in a straight line now, where 4 years ago I was trying to learn in a very sort of wide spray of learning. But I still think learning feels to me like what unlocks meaningful work to me.
Great. Anything we didn't get to that we should have done before we go to our always on questions?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think it was fun.
It was good. Do you want to do Delve Deck or Trend Spotter?
We could do Delve Deck.
All right.
Delve Deck's always a little sketchier because I don't have any preparation for it.
What are you paranoid about?
Oh my gosh, what am I paranoid about? This is what came to mind. I don't know if it fully hits the like full power of paranoid, but I really don't like my hands being dirty. Like if I get honey on my hands, something sticky, or like like buffalo sauce. Oh man. I'm so if you ever eat wings next to me, I'm a real weirdo. You should just watch me because I'll have like 8 napkins, and every time I take one bite of a wing, I like wash my hand. I clean my hands off, and then I take another bite of a wing, and I clean my hands off.
Why don't you just not eat wings?
I eat them less often.
Okay.
I eat them less often than I would like, based on the taste, because of this problem. An interesting thing is I feel like I'm kind of observing Andy, my daughter, like also not like things on her hands. And I've had this since I was a kid. Like I didn't do smash cakes. I wouldn't put my hands in cake. I would cry if I put my hands in the cake. And so I wonder if there's some genetics to it.
Maybe. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
For
what about you? What are you paranoid
for our
about?
podcast holiday party, we can go get wings.
Sounds good. I'll come to Dallas for it.
Gosh, I don't know what I'm paranoid about. I mean, the thing that came to mind, which is more of like an existential fear, is like an EMP, like the electromagnetic pulse, like
two
that,
totally
like,
different answers to this question.
that like fries the electrical grid and like quickly sends a city like to the dark ages. I read a book which I don't recommend called 1 Second After, and it like kind of scared me ever since.
Have you seen the movie on Netflix that's about this?
No, I don't want to. I think Obama was like the co-producer on it.
Okay, well then don't watch it.
Not,
when the world ends or something like that. The
yeah,
edge
I'm
of the
not
world.
Like paranoid, but it's like a biggest fear. I don't know what paranoid,
Yeah,
that's my answer.
Good one.
All right, Trend Spotter, you downloaded OpenAI's browser today. Tell me about it. Are we filming this on OpenAI's browser?
We are filming
now?
this on Atlas, OpenAI's new browser that released like 5 hours ago. I mean, it released 5 hours ago. I don't know if I have tons of like hot takes. I follow this newsletter called Every that is like pretty expensive if you're a paid subscriber. I'm a free subscriber, and so they cut me off on a lot of the good content. But the content that I do get to read is really good. For all the like, I want to learn about AI people out there. One of the things that they do is they get early access to all the AI tools because people know them, and then they play with them, and then they write these like really in-depth reviews. And so that was helpful for me in understanding like the power of this thing. And they were like obsessed with this browser in a way that they are rarely obsessed with new tools, and they're pretty critical. And so that was something I'm pretty excited about. The things that I think are going to be magic about it, that I'm hoping are magic about it, is one, it knows every conversation you've had with ChatGPT in the past, which for a personal use case where I'm like asking for, lasagna recipes and like best Father's Day gifts for my dad under $50, it's probably not all that interesting. At work is insane. If it knows every conversation I've been having with it at work, and ChatGPT for us is connected to like our database, our Slack, all the conversations we're having, our Gmail, our Google Docs, every document we've ever written, Notion, every document we've ever written, every task we've ever done. Like the context and its ability to then take action on the internet, powered by every word I've ever said in my job, is like a massive unlock. So like you can imagine it saying like write an email to this customer negotiating this contract, and it knows every conversation we've had about the contract. It knows all the other vendors we use. It knows the problem I'm trying to solve, and it can draft that email like way better than I can. So that's one thing I'm really, really excited about. Another thing that I think more people will be excited about than just me is OpenAI. I think is going to win. I think they're going to really change the way that we buy stuff on the internet. And they, in the last week or two, have released partnerships with Etsy and Walmart to be able to directly buy stuff from those stores in ChatGPT without even ever going to those stores. And they've done that via this like new sort of like technology protocol that allows them to authenticate to Etsy that this is a real human trying to buy something at this price, without getting into the technology, frankly, because I don't know that much more than what I just described. That's really powerful. And I've enjoyed following this thread that OpenAI is spending a lot of time thinking about, and other people are sort of thinking about on their behalf of like, how do they monetize this? Google went the route of ads, and those ads sort of like degraded the trust that people had in the quality of Google's results. The hope is that OpenAI learns that that's like a road to the bottom. It eventually like degrades the quality of the product, and instead somehow figures out a way to monetize people's happiness after the purchase, and sort of like makes that the driving metric of our buying experience on their platform, such that merchants are incentivized to like, they're more incentivized to make a good product than they are to spend more money on ads. And so they make higher quality products that we get to buy. Anyways, that was maybe a longer monologue about Alice than you were expecting, but
It's great. No, I haven't followed the search engine, but kind of thinking about the monetization strategy too. And then like the PR side with our clients, we talk about like feeding the bots, right? Because the bots are reading something, but then it's like, well, so we talk about SEO and GEO, generative engine optimization, is now the new SEO. So then how do you feed the bots so that when someone's searching for something, you pop up? But then
yeah,
that just like, yeah. So anyways, that's something that I've been thinking about related to what you talked about. So maybe it's not the ad and the bidding, but people are still going to try to manipulate the algorithm to
yeah,
make themselves pop up.
yeah. I saw some really interesting data a couple days ago that over 50% of all articles published on the internet are written by AI, as of like a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
But like 80% of I don't know what the metric was, like clicks or engagement, were on articles written by humans, which is basically that like the AI articles are actually not driving the like SEO that you're hoping for. In that they're just like lower quality, and somehow people are at least figuring out the quality articles in the human written stuff more somehow.
Interesting. Yeah. And maybe
Yeah.
they're from more reputable, for
Yeah,
company
maybe like the New
blog
York Times
versus,
is like
yeah,
heavier or something.
yep, exactly. So, but also the other trend, work slop has entered the vernacular as well, which is interesting to
Yeah,
hear.
that's gonna be the word of 2025.
Yeah, brain rot and work slop. And 6-7, have you heard about this or something? It's what Gen
Someone
Alpha
said
is
this
all
to
saying.
me like 2 days ago, and we're in a younger crowd and everyone died laughing, and Christy and I were like, "What is going on?"
I don't exactly remember what it is, but we'll we'll bring it up for our listeners next episode. People can text us about
Yeah, I need to learn. Someone's got to teach me because I don't know where to find information about
it.
this.
All right. Well, it's good. Adam, always good to see you. What's the one thing you want our listeners listening or thinking about as we finish our commute home or take a moment to journal over the weekend?
Thinking about that one, the first thing that came to my mind is like trust yourself and like listen to your instincts. So
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe just like a word of encouragement to you that you're doing a good job of thinking through these really hard and big decisions, and they are hard and big decisions. And as long as you've given it enough time to really play out the hypothesis, then then like trust where you're feeling
Trust your
drawn.
gut. Yeah. Good word. All right. Well, with that, we will see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us. This show has been brought to you by Arvo Advisory, a new category of consulting company, half management consultancy and half executive communication and PR firm. Arvo works with great leaders to craft and communicate their strategy to achieve change and create valuable companies. Find out more at arvoadvisory.com or follow us on LinkedIn. And finally, if you've been blessed at all by this podcast, please remember to rate and review the show or share it with a friend. And with that, go forth and know that you are loved because of who you are and not because of what you do for work. See you next time.